The revolving accounts, they're our fallback every year for our park side, even though it's 20% for how we manage it. The operation is used, we have 115 acres, and we have 3 laborers to handle that. We cut, maintain, safety, you name it, we do it all. In the summer, we have seasonal kids. So when our general expenses go, which right now, as of this afternoon, our general expense line item has $120 in it for the rest of the year. So starting next week, we'll start looking at the revolving accounts to try to stay afloat. Where we.
So you're talking about the general expense appropriation of $84,858
Right.
that began in
July 1st.
July 1st and was mostly expended in the summer and the fall, and now you're down to 0.
Pretty much, yes. A little earlier this year than normal. Our trucks are very old, dating back to 1980, I think 99, some of them, and we just had to spend roughly $7,000 on to repair a 2004 rack truck that we need, one of our guys drives around in. So it was a pretty heavy hit, but, so usually we're able to stretch it into February, and then, but where the volatility comes in, and like this year from a planning situation, our summer program at Cunningham, which is our biggest program, we were down 45 kids this past summer, which translates to $25,000. That money's gone. There's no way of getting it back. And we've had a good run here with the ski program. So we made back about $8,000. For some reason, this was a good year, even though we don't have snow. This was a good year for people signing up for the ski program, but we're still in the hole.
There was good snow last year, so
Exactly.
they said, okay, it's coming again, you know.
So we're still in the hole, and that money, it's just gone. So that's part of that pot. I anticipate roughly $45,000 that we're gonna have to take from our general expenses and our gift accounts and all of that we're gonna have to use to cover our expenses on the parks, fill in our general expense line item.
Right, well, see, I think something I need to understand a little more specifically is your general revolving fund operation and the recreational part entributes a certain amount generally each year to the park maintenance.
Yes.
And that's what you're missing when your enrollment drops.
Yes.
Then you don't generate that. I think you said it was a $25,000 cushion.
Yeah.
That goes in, that supplements our general fund, general expense allowance for the parks in the direct maintenance of those facilities. So if you lose that because your enrollment drops, it's a problem for the parks overall. It's not just a problem, for your recreation program. Darnell.
So I look at these numbers and they just blow me away sometimes and I think the way you fund these things, look at the cost, divide it out, and then here's the bill. At some point, you basically get to the point where, guess what, kids, we can't do soccer this year because we can't afford it anymore. And if we're raising those year after year after year, it gets to that point. So it's no longer a viable option for a lot of families and stuff. So that's going to affect your enrollment. Therefore, it's going to affect the ability to fund and run your park and recreations, especially since we've basically turned over the funding of our park and recreations department to the fees of that department. I mean, the town stepped aside and said, we decided we're not going to really do anything with those. And put it on the back of those. And that's another thing when we talk about where we get hurt, basically by not doing operational things in this town. All right, when we decide that, it's not important. to look at, keep operational. This is another area in which, the town gets hurt. So we can say that, oh, we can use one-time money to do one-time thing, to do operational things. And this is a glaring area where you see that calculation doesn't work. Because at a certain point, enrollment's gonna go down, we no longer can fund it, you're gonna have to come back here and ask us for it. And then people say, well, some people might have an argument, well, if they can't afford to pay for it, they shouldn't do it. Is that the type of town we want? Where kids can't even join the soccer team or play little league baseball or anything because their parents just can't afford it. I don't think that's the type of town we want, but that's the type of town we're getting because of the way these budgets are being put together right now. And I want to make that point.
Thank you. Now, well, I think there are a lot of leagues in town, that benefit from the efforts of the parks to maintain the grounds that are leased to them. But I think the issue here, and that's great.
These fees.
And the leagues are charging the fees, generally. We're talking about the recreational programs that are run by the Parks and Recreation Department, and those fees, those haven't gone up crazily. Or have they?
They have gone up, but the board has been very sensitive to that concern. I mean, we're $550 for the Cunningham program. Now, if you want to break it down to the hour, it's about $2 an hour, but that doesn't work anymore. Once you put try to put 2 or 3 kids in there, and then you're doing the basketball and you're doing everything else. So we have a lot of families we're taking checks for totals of over $1,000 to participate in recreation in this town. Well over $1,000 to participate in recreation, but
And that
that's-
same family is then paying the schools for participation in their
and the
athletic
leagues.
programs.
So there you go.
And the leagues.
But to Donnell's point, we do charge a $10 registration fee, and we haven't raised that in a long
No.
time. And that's for that MISAC, which goes into this fund, which also funds Paul D'Amato, the recreation supervisor,
Right.
completely.
Right.
So we don't want to raise those fees because then the leagues are going to raise the fees to the kids anyhow. So it's a cyclical.
Yeah.
Something we need to deal with. We're playing with borrowed money, basically. We're counting on getting these registrations and participation, and someday we might not get as much. And as Dave says, we're $45,000 from the rec revolving account to cover general expenses.
45,000?
I anticipate 45 from now until the end of the year that we'll have to take from some of those funds up there to pay for our general expenses for the rest of the year. That includes pencils, erasers, paper in the office, and everything outside. That's everything to
Okay.
run.
I don't want to lose track of,
Yeah.
Phil had a point or a
Yeah, I
question.
wanted to ask a question. The schools have a policy regarding hardship with their athletic fees. Is it possible for you to consider that at all when someone comes in and wants to sign up for a plan and you get the feeling they can't afford it?
We don't turn anybody away.
No, we don't turn anybody away. We have an in-house policy that we use. We coordinate with the school guidance counselors.
Yeah.
One of the things we have to be careful with is the whole program is people are coming in and paying for their child,
Right,
not for someone else's.
right.
And that's where we but we're very generous, I'll just say that. And we don't want to see anybody, but there's a limit, because, we need $45,000 to get through the year so that the fields are safe. But
And there are those
Yeah,
kids
right.
and those parents who aren't even gonna ask if they
and
feel
that's,
bad about it.
yeah, but we work real close with the guidance counselors, and they help us. They bring it to us. The church next door, they're very good, and they've helped.
Mhm.
So there are some organizations, and we do our share.
Okay, so what's difficult about your budget is that it is in 2 parts. And the recreation part we see the overall activity, but we don't really know what it's for. So when you have your fiscal year 14 revenue, I pretty much understand that, and then you have the expenses, okay? Somewhere in these expenses, there are actual categories of expense, like wages for all the guys you hire to run the programs, and somewhere in there, there's an amount that goes to contractors, for the fields and God knows what, okay? And it's that amount that, I mean, obviously you get 28 to 30 directly from the Milton Youth Soccer
Sports advisory
sports,
committee.
right, for field purposes, but you spend more out of these accounts than you get from them, okay? And so what I need to know is, what are you spending out of these accounts that's sort of, what are these accounts contributing to the general expense of maintaining the parks above and beyond that direct line item from NYSI? Because if the recreation league went away, you would still have many of those expenses, right? And right now, I'm just wondering how what are those expenses that we can't see in here? I mean,
So just,
you see what I
I guess
mean?
for my-
See what I'm saying?
my own, to clarify, you're
Right.
looking for maybe a breakdown, a line item breakdown of that particular fund? Or all these
Well, you've
funds?
got $537,000 of expenses in
Right.
fiscal year 14, okay? How much of that pretty much just went straight to the park side of the coin to pay for general expenses and field maintenance? And,
45, you think you're gonna
Yeah,
spend.
because that was
Yeah,
actually gonna be my.
I mean, that's what we're looking for. If the recreational league went away, you wouldn't be able to bring that money into the parks budget.
So,
Yeah.
Right, so what would we need
As it were.
and
So-
where would we be? And-
if I can just
Yeah, go ahead.
extrapolate on that, that was my question, but historically, like you say, you're gonna use 45,000 this year. What did you use the year before? What did you use the year before that? So did you have some sort of tracking on this and what the averages might be over a 3-year, 5-year, something like that period of time?
Anywhere from, we have been tracking anywhere between $40,000 and $55,000 a year from the revolving accounts
To cover the
to
general.
go to cover our general
general
maintenance of
expenses.
the fields and anything on the field side.
Okay.
That's what we've been basically, for the last 3 or 4 years. That's basically where we're at with that. At this budget level for general expenses, we've been pretty steady now for the last, at 75, give or take here or there, for general expenses. And another, anywhere from 40 to 55. And the reason, and it could fluctuate more, but like I said, we just got a $7,000 bill that we never thought we would get. And we had to pay to put the truck on the road. So there's a little bit of flexibility, but we're looking at, out of that chunk, to cover our general expenses.
So basically, 7 or 8 months into the fiscal year, you guys have probably spent the town appropriation, and now you're dipping into your revolving funds to cover the rest to cover the months 9 through 12, or
Correct.
something like that.
Right, that's exactly what's going on.
Okay.
In the 30, in the MISAC money is not included in that. That's basically a separate project by item type special project. That's outside of that. Like Tom said, we did a major project at Kelly, we did a major project at Shields. We reconstructed the field, so we took that money, and that was a capital expense that we did. So that money it goes into the rental revolving account. That's where most of the money in the rental revolving account goes to. There's other monies, if we have, like Nike, we have a camp in the summer that Nike comes in and rents our middle field. We'll put that money in that rental account. If someone else, an outside organization, rents a field for $1,000, that goes in the rental revolving. But 90 to 95% of the money that goes into that rental revolving account now is that MySAC money. So,
Which is dedicated to the.
to that field thing, so there's, that comes right off the top, so,
Now, to some extent, field maintenance has to happen regardless of, you
exactly.
know, I mean, the seasons, winter happens and spring happens, whether or not you have a ton of players on the field. But you do have a ton of players on the field. You don't do all the work yourself. You have to contract out for it, okay? And some of those contract costs are not hidden, but are part of this, part of these expenses.
Yes.
And then some of them are also in your, I imagine in your regular expenses under grounds and building maintenance, is that where they are?
Yep, buildings and grounds is very big, equipment maintenance.
Okay, so is this 22,000 under grounds and building maintenance? Does that include your outside contractors for aeration and fertilization?
Yes.
Okay. Is that pretty much most of that line item?
Oh, it's more than that. It would be more than that.
Right, but that line
Yeah,
item.
that's eaten up.
So for instance, last year, actual $20,977, that's pretty much all outside contractors for
I'd say so.
grounds maintenance.
The 20,000 would just, I mean, the fertilizer would cost how much of that much to do the proper program?
Okay, but grounds and building maintenance, that 20 grand went to outside contractors, pretty much, right? That line item?
Well,
No?
you could say that because it goes to, as we move along.
Right,
It goes to it. Our turf maintenance program last year was roughly $36,000 for the whole year.
okay,
So-
where did the money, which line item covered that $36,000?
That first one, you can say,
Okay,
that's where it came from.
so 20 of the 36
Yeah.
came
If-
from that line item.
The
and
remaining came from
Other
our.
16 came from your revolving
Yes,
funds?
if you want to break it down, yes.
Okay,
Simplify it, yes.
all right, go ahead, Paul.
It might help in the future, because I've noticed, if you look at fiscal year 14, your original budget and actual are all identical. So back to the point of you're using the revolving funds to cover, so obviously what you're doing is you're spending, here's the general expense line, and you spend all of it. That's why you have zero. So it might help in the future if you could give us a breakdown of what the actual numbers are that you're taking from the revolving funds to plug in to these different categories.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we know what you're actually, by the end of the year, this is what you're actually spending beyond what was appropriated for each one of them.
Could you, I just want to say, is the answer to that question your level service budget? So instead of 22.9, I see 36.3 for grounds and build. You with me? So that's the
Yeah, no, I
difference
see
between,
that. That's what
that's the
he's
difference between 84 and the
And that's what
122
he's
is.
projecting for the current, the coming.
Right, but not for the previous year.
But
for
it'd
the
be
coming
good
year.
if we had a
see what you're saying.
history
Right.
as well, so we know, like, where you've been plugging in. So if you're spending, you've got a grounds and building maintenance budget of $20,977, you're spending all of it. But obviously, you're going through that's spent before your fiscal year is up, and you're having to take money from your revolving funds to cover shortfall. If we also had a number on all those shortfalls of where the revolving fund monies are going to cover those, that would probably be helpful.
So, Steve?
Yeah, Dave, I'm just wondering if there's a mistake on the spreadsheet under column G on Schedule E, where it's 28,521 on the water sewer, because it's 8,521 everywhere else.
Yeah.
And if so, if that carries down, which it looks like, down to the 122,
Where's that again, I'm sorry?
Column G.
You're on water and sewer?
Yeah, it's, there's a 20 grand
increase there?
bump.
16?
Yeah, 20,
That's for
2005.
2016 level service.
Says
It's
28.
it's
28,521 is the number on the spreadsheet I have.
Looks like a $20,000.
Yeah,
20,000 increase for level service.
102, 858.
So that should
so that should be the 8,521.
Or unless you have
8,521.
$20,000
So
worth of more water.
Like, there's
that you
nothing
need.
going on, you're
No,
not
no.
having to replace like a,
No, but
It's water fields.
what I'm, on a level service, what I'm trying to show is our water bill is $28,000 a year. Okay, that's what I think we were trying to say there.
And you're getting it covered through the revolving fund.
Exactly.
And you're- and
Yes,
you're-
that is not,
Yeah.
it's not a typo.
Exactly.
And they're actually, you were in arrears on that bill, and you're
Yeah.
finally catching up to it.
We were in the rears about $45,000 on 3 fields, and I think we've narrowed that down now to where we're under $5,000. We'll be back to even. And what we've done is, we've had a well now put in, we have a well at Flatley, and we have a well at Kelly Field now. So that's helped us tremendously. Flatley was something that was put in when the field was turned over to us. So we really, we weren't paying the water bill up there prior to that. We just didn't incur that cost when we took that field over 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. But at Kelly Field, this year, we started to see a savings, and we put it back into the water arrears so we could get even with the town. We've done a pretty good job with that, working with Joe Lynch, and we've been very aggressive to try to correct that. And we'll be back even by middle of the year. And part of the agreement was we would pay our current water bills on time and not fall behind. We've been doing that. And that pretty much is coming from revolving accounts or the gift accounts. For instance, the gift account down at Guile, the water at Guile Road, we're taking some of the money from that gift account to pay for that. We'd love to put a well down at that Guile Road, because that thing's about, depending on the summer, we could go as high as $45,000 watering that, depending on how hot it is.
It's a lot. I've got Mike and then Darnell.
Yeah, I was on TV. I was worried that people would think I wasn't paying attention to what was going on because I was looking at my phone. But this morning, I have breakfast every week with some friends of mine. This morning I heard a friend of mine who's in the Sustainable Milton group talking about this kind of grass that has deep roots, doesn't need to be, maintained as much. And I couldn't remember the name of it, so I went on the internet just now. Yeah, and it was on Marketplace, the thing on NPR. In 2011, they talked about the town of Littleton was buying this kind of grass. What kind of grass seed do we use? And are we trying to get the kind that doesn't need to be watered as much or fertilized? It's more, I guess it costs more up front, but it pays for itself in a couple of years. And I guess they're doing it in Littleton.
Generally,
I can pass my phone over to you if you want.
most of our fields are Kentucky bluegrass.
Yep.
So if maintained properly and fertilized properly, that's the goal is to have deep roots. There's, fertilizers you can use to get that. I don't know, I think I know what grass you're talking about, but I'm not sure the name myself offhand. But it's really not
It was a
great to-
blend. It's a blend.
Right.
It goes into a trade name of pearls.
Right, it's not the greatest to play, it's probably a good rectangle like soccer, lacrosse, rugby, football grass. It's probably not a good baseball grass because it's rough and it's just hard to groom tight, and what you want is something tight. I mean, personally, my goal is to make the fields look green and ready to play sports, because that's kind of what we do. So you really need to have the program, the fertilizer program, and the maintenance program in place to get your deep roots, but you need to maintain it. You need to aerate it, you need to slice seed it.
Well, maybe I'm thinking about Crane Field, where there used to be a sign that said no ball playing.
Yeah, well, that's
There
easy
could be
to take care
some
of.
places in town where we wanna use,
But those ones are easy to take care of because they're not getting the wear and tear. Where you want the deep roots is on the football fields, the soccer fields, where they're pounding it constantly. I mean, the amount of play on our fields is crazy. I mean, think about it. Drive around town on a summer day or a fall or a spring day, that they're not usually empty unless it's during the day and the kids are at school or the people that coach them aren't home yet. But they get a lot of play. And the goal is to have deep roots and strong grass, and then in the long run, it's cheaper to maintain because you have that good turf. But it costs money, the money that we don't have. I mean, to put the program in place that we need to put in place, you know, we're just not funded for that. I mean, you need more contractors. We have 3 guys, you know, that have to cut the grass and clean up the fields and get the baseball fields ready. There's not a lot of time to do the extra stuff. So you have to hire contractors. Contractors are expensive.
well, I know I'm probably running out of my time, but for the follow-up, we heard that we just got all this extra disk space for the information technology department. And so maybe could keep some stats on the different parks, like the ones that need different kinds of treatment, you know, maybe Crane Field could get stuff that you don't have to cut so often. It won't dry
Yeah.
out in the summer.
Again, I mean, Crane Field is probably not,
I think about it a lot because I see it every day.
right, it's just not.
Now that I know the name of it too, it's amazing.
Not to say it's not important, but it doesn't get as cut as often because it's really not being played on and has to be maintained to a certain level to have playability. So it could go an extra couple of days.
Do you have any idea how happy my neighbors would be if I managed to use this forum to have a green Crane Field all summer long? All right, I'm up, enough.
I think that's a question of the
In all
warrant.
honesty, again, we cut it. and
Irrigation is key.
There's no irrigation, and we just don't have the money to fertilize that and everything. And when we have a contractor come in, I actually tell them, listen, just quote the field, not the outside edges, because we don't have the money for the whole park. So when we go to Kelly Field, I say, listen, infield to infield, that's it. Deep left field, this way, because it all adds up when you go to 5 or 6 different fields. And instead of 35,000, it's 45, 50,000, and we don't have it. And I'll pick up on what Tommy said. If you look at our fields, very few are individual playing surfaces. Kelly Field is a multi-purpose. If you go by Kelly Field, it's used every single day by all the gym teachers, the gym classes at the school. And, you know, not a lot of heavy stuff, but they're on it. And they're on where we drop the seed and we put the fertilizer, and they're out there pounding away. In the afternoon, the high school's out there. Whether it be soccer, lacrosse, baseball, you name it, they're there, softball. At night, you have the other crew. And then when we get into the summer, it kind of lightens up a little, just baseball. And once we get into the fall, we now have Gaelic football. We have rugby. We have 2 football programs now, and then the school programs, along with the soccer programs.
There's some soccer going on there too, yeah.
And we have, Kelly Field is multi-purpose, it's used all year long. Guile Road, every field up there is multi-purpose, used all year long, every inch of it, except the fenced-in baseball field. Thank God it's fenced in, because that would look like, you know, that would be used also. Andrews Field, it's used a lot, but the soil down there and the moisture that it keeps, that it's green most of the time. It holds up. And there's times when I kind of cut back on that. I'll tell the contractor, don't do this and this during this time frame because the field looks great. And we monitor it as close as we can to save money throughout the year. So, but the biggest thing is we're getting pounded every day, whereas Milton Academy, they shut a field down and they just keep people off. Cunningham Park, it's just softball, soccer, and baseball, and that's it. And it's not used 24/7 like our fields are used 24/7. And no matter what we do to it, the wear and tear, we can't keep up with it because there's someone always on it. It's a very difficult task. And it's expensive, getting more expensive.
Oh, thanks.
So I guess it would be it would really be helpful to think about a different approach to this budget, because your recreation programs should certainly pay for themselves, okay? I don't know that they should charge a 10% premium so that you can pay for additional fertilizer and field maintenance. And it's unaccountable because it's buried in those expense, in just that one expense line of, you know, the rental revolving fund or wherever. So it's hard to get a handle on it to say, well, this is where your shortfall is. And it leads to things like that 28,000 water sewer line not being a mistake, when it looks like a typo. And I guess, I didn't think we were allowed to, I didn't think any department was allowed to get behind on their bills.
That's what I thought too.
But you
We
ended
had no
up,
choice. It was, what happened, we got behind when they rebuilt the schools, especially up at Guile.
Mhm.
Water was running, and no one knew about it, and we got stuck with the bill when it was all said and done. And it was about $80,000. And they don't let water bills go south around here, so we had to try to keep up. And when you rebuild a field, like
so there was no, that happened in 1
2000.
metering period?
Pretty much it was well, that park was closed, that field was closed 4 years. They had safety issues, so when the schools opened, the middle field was still under the control of Suffolk. In order to get it right, there was a lot of back and forth. So when we got it back, we had a bill that we had to deal with. As well as when you redo Kelly Field, you're running the water 2-3 times a day to keep it and get it. When you redo Mary C. Lane, when we redo Shields, we need to run the water in our bills. That's why the wells are important to us.
But you inherited an $80,000
Roughly,
mistake
it was, yeah, it was roughly 80,000.
from
It
Suffolk
built up over
Construction.
3-4 years while the fields were being reconstructed and when they were finished. That was back in 2000, 2001.
So why didn't that bill go to Suffolk? Interesting. Don't know.
How much does it cost to put in a well? You were talking about over at Kelly, you had to put a well.
What was the Kelly mill?
Roughly 36,000. We had budgeted, we had a donation from Copeland,
Mhm.
and I think we got 25,000 from them. And in order to get the amount of water we needed, it went up to roughly everything included, including the final pieces of the puzzle when we capped it,
Mhm.
around $36,000. We tried to put a well in up at, when they were doing the building project, way back. We asked them if they would put a well in up at the Guile, and it got taken out of the budget. We tried to drill a well about 10 years ago up there, right to the right of the Little League concession stand. And we were down 750 feet, and we were getting 13 gallons per minute. We had to stop it. And that cost us $25,000. And all we got was 13 gallons per minute. We needed about 60. So, it was something we needed, and it didn't work.
Which means,
Okay.
in a nutshell, it's hard to estimate it, because you don't know how deep it's cost per foot, and then you put in pumps and such. But you just don't know until you hit water and get your PSI, because you need a certain PSI to run your irrigation.
We did something a little different this year. We, this time down at Kelly, we went with a geologist, is that who? We
Yeah.
brought in a guy,
They did some fracking.
some fracking, and he did some studying for 3 days, and he told us where to drill. And for days, I'm like, I don't know about this, and he was right. We got what we needed. And,
Had one of those little forked sticks.
he had a couple things, a couple things, and he,
Well, he started doing that flat, we might
Good
find some
dowser.
oil.
yeah, yeah,
huh?
bring him
Come on.
back, because he was right on target. He was right on target. And, but if we could get a well up at Gow Road, it would really help the budget. Everything that we can do to save helps our budget. We need a tractor right now. Our tractor, $30,000, and then another probably with the pieces, Tommy, 15 to 20.
For your attachments.
Right. Then we could do the work on the aeration, fertilization, and all that. We could save, it would just be the product. We could save a lot of that money. But it's $30,000 plus another 15 to get the stuff, and then personnel. So there's a savings, but it's catch-22 for us.
So how much was your fracking guy? How much was he to come out and do your?
The geologist guy
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
That was all part
It
of
was all part of the 36. He was,
Oh.
he was around 45 to 5. And it could have gone up if he kept, but that was what it was. And that was built in. That's not where the extra, the electrical was really the extra, because we had to run from the Red House building. We had to run some electrical stuff, and it got a little more complicated because of the wiring. We had old wiring in the old irrigation system, in the timing box, so we had to fix that. And then what we did a year later, really that summer, we went in and we changed out pretty much all the lines on the field. They were like 30 years old with new heads and everything. We completed it. So our efficiency's pretty good there.
Works.
So, talking about personnel, I'm gonna bring up your level dollar scenario, which is, I think, pretty much, well, the difference between your level service and your level dollar is about $30,000, and that's for the laborer that we have not been able to fund. That was a request you made 2 years ago?
last year.
Last year?
Last year.
Last year?
Personnel approved it last year, we came to you last year.
2 years ago, we were able to boost your seasonal by $10,000. And last year, we weren't able to do that. We were able to increase your general expense budget by 5, but obviously, you have some needs of which we weren't really aware. But looking at your current level dollar salary and wage sheet, I see that this is the vacancy that we haven't filled yet,
The
the W5.
The W5 has actually, it's going tonight. We promoted from within. It's being approved at the personnel board tonight. So we are gonna fill that spot from within. Our W4 is moving up into the 5 spot.
Okay, I'm gonna put this one back on so that people
Okay.
see the whole situation. And then I'll. Okay, so this is the level service, the desired for staffing situation, and you can see there are 2 vacancies. The laborer is the one that we haven't funded.
Right.
And this current vacancy is, I'm just wondering, how long has that been vacant? What's the story is, and you're telling me it's also being upgraded as well. So,
We've promoted our W4 to a W5 to take that W5 vacancy.
so William,
William Blase is now.
okay, he went
our-
from here to here.
Right,
Okay,
and that, as of tonight, will be official.
okay.
And then,
And so, but now you have a W4
Yes.
vacancy.
in that, we posted, and we got no internal, And this Thursday and Saturday will be in the newspaper, and hopefully we'll have someone in that spot in the next 30 days to 60 days.
Mhm. So how long have you been down one person?
Since July.
Since
Oh,
July?
actually,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
29th, right?
Yeah. it was
Tommy
just about
retired.
August.
It was
The end of
August.
July.
End of July?
Yeah, July 28th, Tommy Monahan
Okay.
was his last day, he retired.
So you got through the rest of the summer with minus one guy. How did you do that?
We actually hired additional seasonal kids. We took-
Additional seasonal.
And we've been using them all the way through with the good weather.
Right.
So, that's how we were able to, keep our manpower up and stay up with it through the fall with the cutting and everything.
Okay. So you're on budget in terms of your seasonal worker budget, or you're probably gonna, this year, or are you gonna probably
Probably go over it a little bit.
go over it?
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna use that unpaid piece of the year to
Cover it,
cover
yes.
that?
Right.
I
In the
see.
spring, when we get busy again, we'll use that to, which.
So you might wanna monitor that so that
Oh,
you
yeah.
can see if there's something there you can switch over with 3%, the 3% rule. But that doesn't really help you in terms of funding for the year following. So, again, people are gonna say, or I've heard people say, well, geez, what do you guys all do during the winter time? Now, obviously, this winter hasn't really kicked in yet, except for it's a little hard to aerate a lawn that's frozen solid, but, and you have, I saw all your equipment the other day over at, in the garage, and it's beautifully lined up, but that must take a lot of maintenance over the winter. But you have a huge crew of seasonal workers in the summertime, and I think, you know, at the time, we didn't fund that laborer position. You know, one of the reasons is that we were unconvinced that you needed more full-time rather than more seasonal. So, I don't know if you have any arguments that you brought to the personnel board that you haven't shared with us, then maybe you ought to dust them off and, you know.
The biggest and easiest argument is seasonals generally, we do get to hold on a couple college kids, like, they're home for a month now, so we can use them a little bit. But a lot of the kids we hire seasonal are summer, high school kids or college kids. But they come to us in about May,
Mid-May
and they
to
leave in
end of May.
about August. When's the grass grow? Starts in April. So we're working hard to get everything ready, March and April, without those seasonals. And when they go in August, the best time to grow grass is in the fall, we all know that. So it's growing like crazy. The fields are going hard because all the programs are running. So that's really when we need them, and they're not here. If we don't have that full-time employee that we can put to get things ready and to put things to bed.
So you lost a full-time employee at the end of July, and then mid-August, college boys or high school kids.
Right.
So how have you
But
been
as
surviving
Dave
this
stated,
fall?
we were fortunate to keep a couple of them around.
We had,
Okay,
we had two that we were able, who would graduate, were looking for, well, one had graduated college, looking for work.
Mhm.
Kept him, he's been with us for 2 or 3 years. The other young man is a part-time student in the area, and we kept him on.
oh, okay.
And they were experienced, so they were at least able, when we told them, you know, to cut, pick up, do this, we were able to maintain it. That's not, usually we have no one in the, once we get to September, there's nobody around. We happen to be lucky this year with that, and we actually, because Tommy being out.
You had the budget, right.
And part of the issue was I was out on extended sick leave, so I was not able to manage it on an every day. So some of the things fell through the cracks that might have been handled a little differently. if I had been there the whole time. So, we're trying to get, I've been back now for about a month and a half, and we're pretty much back on track, but.
Now, you also mentioned, that you're looking after 115 acres, you said, these days?
Right, we're up to
And
115.
Has that changed over the last 4 or 5 years? I mean, you added some acreage recently, I think, no?
PS Middle School, we got,
In Flatley,
In
about 10
Flatley.
acres, 8 to 10 acres of maintenance
Of fields,
field, yes,
okay?
which, again,
That's- So, not 10% more fields,
right,
okay.
and it might not, it doesn't sound like much, but to drive up to Flatley is a 10-minute drive. Unload, you're looking at 30 minutes. Just to get up there, to load one, head up there, unload, do the cutting, the whole bit, get down to, so it's, and it's a big park. We get a lot of help from the soccer people, they're excellent with the MISAC and everything, but about 10 extra acres. We maintain Pope's Park down off of, what's the street there? Sumner, and that's selectmen property, but we cut it because the little kids use that for soccer. And
I'm trying to think what that is.
What does that mean, selectmen property?
they own that piece of land,
Not the park.
the part, but we cut
Oh,
it,
okay.
and because
So the town owns it, but,
we maintain it. Just basic cutting, that's it.
it's off of Canton.
Off of Canton?
Right off of,
Across the Parkway first, right?
right opposite the gas station, that short road that comes out there.
Oh, okay, I know exactly where.
There's a little park there, and believe it or not, it's
Yep.
used a lot by the
I know
kids'
where it
youth
is.
leagues.
oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
there were years, no one would cut it.
Cut it.
So we started cutting it about 12 years ago, so they could use it. And it's because of our lack of field space. You know, we help the police station, we have a good relationship with them. We cut the police station, they help us with our ID programs and with the other things that we need. They help us with our picture taking and stuff, so we cut that for them. So it's, these are little pieces that take time, and so having another individual, there's times when in the summer, if something goes wrong, if we have an irrigation problem, my foreman's pretty good at irrigation, but if we're in the middle of the fall and we have to be cutting every day, I have to call a contractor. I can't pull him off a mower, I can't pull him off a field, so I have to call a contractor and have him come in and fix that irrigation. So with another laborer, Johnny could get down and fix that, and we'd save a lot of money. And it's not just that, it's fencing. We just had an issue at, a tree came down at the tennis courts at Kelly. We couldn't get to it. So we basically had to bring in a contractor. Flip side of it is, someone backed into, we did a nice, small stone wall, divided down at Shields in the center about 5 years ago. It was Musto, right?
Yeah.
Who helped us with that? I mean, he built it, and a truck, during the Christmas time, one of the delivery trucks, a UPS or a FedEx, backed into it and completely ruined it. It's put back together, but we had time to do it with the weather. So we did that. And we're a little slower. Johnny went out and they fixed it, it's brand new. But there's things, when our busy season, having that extra individual would be a savings for us, and we would be able to get to more things, so. Sometimes we just have to make shift. If you go down to Kelly Field and you look at the playground, there's a piece of wood that's blocking one of the things. We haven't had time to put the piece up. It's going up next week, but it was a piece, we had to put a piece of plywood up to prevent a kid from falling through. The kids destroyed it. So until we find the time, we get the piece to put it up, it'll go up and be fixed. It's winter time, so it's not a priority right now, but having an extra guy, there's a lot we could do, a lot more we could do. And if we go with a tractor, and we have to do that, slice seeding and everything, we're gonna need an extra guy to do that stuff.
Yeah, well, there's an argument for not giving you any equipment, if you have to then hire somebody to run it.
As long as we
But-
can tell them all your
but,
names, and they call us complaining that the fields aren't
Right.
right.
Oh, sure, yeah, give my phone number. Betty,
In the last couple of years, how many seasonal employees have you typically hired in the summer? And I was just sort of thinking, as you're talking about this laborer position, whether you ever thought about it like being a part-time position, given that, you know, the needs change depending on the season?
I haven't really put any thought into that. Some thought has come to me where we might give up a seasonal, 1 or 2 seasonal spots to cover the cost.
Mm-hmm.
I've
And
looked at it from
how many
that way.
seasonals do you usually hire in the summer?
We're budgeted for 6.
Okay.
What I try to do is, in order to hire more, we try to hire 7 and put them on a 32-hour work week instead of a 40. So we can put 7 kids to work. Our 3 guys take vacations, and when do they take vacations? In the summer. So there's times when there's just 1 senior guy there with
Well,
6 or
that's
7
crazy.
kids, you know?
Who wants to take a vacation in the summer?
Exactly.
You know, I don't get
But we're sending college kids out in a truck, 3 of them, with equipment, and they're cutting grass, and they're doing fields. A job that really should be done by a town laborer. And we have 1 guy who's might be running around on his truck grooming infields for that night. So that's why I kind of expanded. I went from 6 to 7. And we cut it down, and the kids like it. They like a day off. So it worked out good.
Nice. So, I guess what I would love to see from you, Dave, is for the future and for our information later on this budget season, is some kind of breakout on those expense lines in the, you know, in the revolving and gift categories. And if you had it for the previous year, that would make the exercise much more worthwhile to have 2 years. Because we have to look at something like a request for an extra $20,000 of, you know, water and sewer compared to what you had in there from last year and this year, and we just can't. Your regular budget goes to 0 in every category because you blow through it, and we have no idea of what your actual costs, you know, of maintaining the town's park system is, without that additional detail. So that would be really great if you could.
We have the information. For instance, we used 2 maintenance contractors last year, Shrewsbury Landscape and Sports Turf Specialties.
Sure.
We have their totals and what they do. We can pull that up, and I'm happy. We have the water bills. We can basically, I can talk with Lisa tomorrow. We just lost our clerk, too. She just got promoted, so
Understand, yeah.
we're running with no,
Oh, God.
it's a crazy system when you promote someone and you leave a department high and dry. I don't understand it, but that's where we're at starting tomorrow morning, with no clerk, 2 hours a day. So I'll try to get that, but it's there, it's in the system, we keep track of it. So I'll try, I can look at that.
I don't need it
All right,
tomorrow.
just saying.
You know. But, and I'll follow up with you on it, but it's, it would be helpful if, for instance, in this rental revolving, if that's $54,000 that went straight to field maintenance, it'd be good to know. And whatever else is there.
Yeah.
So is anybody, I don't know, I think we've gotten a much better idea of how things work or don't work for the parks. And, you know, I want to thank you for everything you do to help us look good in the town, and because I think in general we do look pretty good.
I have good people working for me. I have good outside people and I have good inside people. Very good, and they work hard.
And, you know, and thanks for coming in tonight. And I'll follow up with you. Excellent. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or questions? Nope. Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay. Joe, sorry to keep you, you're waiting, we're only running 35 minutes behind, but, you know.
Good evening.
You can have as much time as you want.
Oh, great. I'll see if I can do it all in 5 minutes.
There you go. All right. Get your budget up. So, for the record, we have Joe Prondak here from the Inspectional Services Department. He is our, the Town of Milton's Building Commissioner. Thank you. And I don't know, before we get into your budget, is there anything you can tell us about the Hendry situation? Or not?
We're facing another delay due to some issues with some oil tanks on the properties. And we're in discussions with John Flynn about how to resolve that, and I think that's really all I can say.
Okay, so we're waiting. We'll find out someday. It's fine.
I wish I could tell you we're ready to tear it down tomorrow, but we're not at that point.
Understandable.
Well, that also means that we haven't spent the money yet either.
Yeah, that's good.
Hope it's an interest
Every
bearing
step
account.
forward, it seems we take 2 steps back, and it's just the complexities of this building.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, okay, anyway.
So,
Inspectional services, relatively straightforward budget. I guess before we get into it too much, you could remind us what the $8,000 encumbrance was all about?
that was a, one of the, I believe it was a 3%,
No, it was an encumbrance from the prior year.
encumbrance from the prior year.
So in other words,
I think it may have been at the point in time where we were lacking the wiring inspector. Where, the actual source of it, I'm not sure. I know what we used it for, and the reason we encumbered it was to try and take some of our archival records and put them into electronic format. And
so this is sort of an outside contract to,
yes,
that you have contracted for towards the end of the year, and then
Yep.
the performance didn't happen until the next. Okay.
correct.
So, but it's quite a one-time expense that you were able to cover from your regular budget, right? That 8,000?
No, so the $8,000 was, well, yeah, again, from the prior year.
From the prior
There
year?
was a period of time where we didn't have a wiring inspector because one had left, and between the time one left and one was rehired, there was that leftover salary in between.
Oh, so you used a 3% transfer to get it
Yes.
into the equipment line, and then
I,
something like that?
yep,
And then it became encumbered? Okay,
Yes.
well, all right. Because generally you need your $19,000 of general expenses. You don't have an extra 8,000 sitting there.
right.
Okay. Just wanted to get that out of the way. All right.
Yeah, so that's not there for the upcoming year, that money is gone.
Okay, so it's really the only difference you're showing in a request for level service versus, continuing with level dollars is, since, you don't need any more things or general, for general expenses. You don't
Right.
need any more dollars for that, you're okay. Because you didn't ask for any more.
Correct.
Okay. And however, on the salary side of life, okay, before we get to the salary side of life, this year you didn't give us any information on income, because we didn't ask you for it on B.
Yeah, that was my,
But you did tell us in your notes that you're generating $185,000 more each year in fees.
But, yeah, and also, or we had in the past 2 years, and that we expect to be at least on target with last year, this year. I mean, I can give you an example that I think shows how difficult it is to project what the fees will be. And this year does look pretty good so far. So I looked at, from July 1st, 2014 to 2 days ago, January 12th, we issued 615 building permits in that 6-month period, for a total construction value of $30,745,000, and therefore generated fees of about $344,000. In the same time last year, the same 6-month period, we issued the exact same number of building permits, 615 building permits, but the value was only $19,915,000, and generated $279,000 in fees. So it's very hard to project what the economy, where the economy is gonna take the construction market. But the number so far for this year, halfway through, we are about $60,000 higher for the same time in fees that we've taken in than we were last year.
Well, that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the market,
Very helpful.
the market is incredibly strong. It could, it could drop off tomorrow. We just don't know. I suspect not, but there's really no way to know for sure what it's gonna do. So,
I mean, you're talking $60,000 above where you were last
time
year,
last year.
this time last year.
For the same number of fees.
for the same number of permits.
Sorry, that's what I meant to say, excuse me. Permits, 615.
Yeah, bigger additions
In the
in bigger
eclipse.
houses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the eclipse is
Values.
renovating.
And the
Values.
spring is usually stronger than the fall.
We like to say that, but,
Second half.
the mild winters keep things going and
Right.
improve technology too. The fact that, we can pour concrete in 0-degree weather now. People, and people want to work. The contractors don't want to stop if they don't have to.
Right.
So there haven't been the spikes in the spring and after the summer vacation, the early fall, that there have been historically in the past. But yeah, it will be busier, certainly. So people just hold off.
Okay, now in the past, when you did report your income,
Mhm.
and I think we need to revamp it. I mean, one of the problems with local revenue is each department would have, might generate a few fees, and then they would be collected under the term fees at the, accounting level. And it would be hard to relate one person's fee or permit number to the total collection of, in the accounting system. But I think we have to revisit how we're looking at this, because we ought to see it by department, and rather than having us look at licenses, one line, permits, another line, fees, another line, it ought to say income from building department, income from police department, income from, whatever department it is, so that it might be segregated that way. But anyway, and then we can look at the activity in that department and relate it more closely to the fee, the income history. Now, we could never get much of a history from you, or prediction from you anyway, because even in the face of a number like this, you would tell us that your
10%
total was gonna go down 10%. So,
Just to be safe.
so even though you're up $60,000 halfway through the year. So that's one reason no department was giving us accurate predictions on their income. So we started just looking at the history, you know, overall history, you know, from the accountant's records. But it's good to hear what's going on.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I mean, I only did that projection on the building permit fees.
Right.
I suspect if I did it on plumbing, wiring, and gas fees, I'm gonna have a similar increase. So reality probably, I'm gonna guess we're $75,000 to $80,000 up from the same period last year.
Mhm. So when you report these numbers to the accountant,
Amy?
do they get broken down into the plumbing and the wiring and the whatever, or is it all just one?
No, they'll give, if you, even in the annual report, it's broken down.
Great, great.
Yeah, because
Okay.
she often has to answer, I know she often has to answer to the DOR when they see a particular spike, they wanna know exactly where it came from, so she does get all that information.
Yeah, I don't know what they do with that information,
Yeah, I don't, no idea.
but we'd be more interested in seeing your department's information unified on one line in our, you know, for our local revenue purposes. And,
Yep,
and
thank
I'll- I think it's a switch that could be accommodated by the accountant. So,
I can report it out any way anybody wants, pretty much.
great. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions on the income stream generated here, but the building department in general is, you know, you bring in about $800,000 a year.
We have, yes.
Yes.
Historically, it can go much lower than that.
Right. Anyway, it's a big chunk, and it's been on the increase the last few years, and that seems to be indicative of some building activity in town, and I guess it doesn't look to stop.
In the real estate market, the construction market's tied closely to the real estate market. We have a hot market here in Milton, hot real estate market. I think everybody knows that. People are, you know, asking $400,000 for the houses and getting $450. It's not happening in every community.
No. Donnell, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.